Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Britt. Friends call me Ruthie, and I expect you all to be friends, right? Mark, maybe not. I'm just teasing, buddy. No, Mark, we like to pick on him, so that's just a little fun. Well, I do like to have fun. This is being recorded, so I have to keep it PG and I have to keep it fairly professional. Um, we will, like I said, this is being recorded. I do encourage questions. I do encourage comments because we can learn from one another. And so if you have a comment or a question, I would like you to use the mic. Don't be scared. I would like you to use the mic just because I want our friends on this recording who are going to watch this later who are not able to be with us today. Maybe they're starting school or whatever. And so I would like them to hear your question. I would like them to hear your comment. Again, because that's how we learn. We can learn from each other. I love these type of meetings. I love DPP meetings. I love it when we can get together with other districts because they may be doing something that is perfectly okay, but it might be different from what we are doing and it might spark an idea. So I do like to share ideas. I do like to encourage questions. So if you would, this is going to be kind of like a classroom setting. I don't normally do that. I am not a teacher, never have been. But I have worked in education now for close to 20 years. So I am excited to be here with you today. And I'm so thankful that you guys are here with us today as well. I would like to ask how many new attendance clerks I have with me today. Awesome. Yay. Okay. How many are less than 5 years an attendance clerk? Great. Awesome. How many have yet to go through an attendance audit? All right, great. So I hope that this is helpful for you. I don't see my friend Becky, but maybe Sasha can help me out. Sasha, whenever we break later, I have I think they're yellow pieces of paper back there on that back table, and I'd like to give everyone just a little piece of paper. And I have 3 questions at the end. If you would be so kind to just jot down your answers, and that will help us prepare for next year. So tell me what you like about the presentation. Tell me what you can tell me what you didn't like. Just don't tell me you didn't like me, okay? Because remember, we're friends. So, and you're going to call me Ruthie. No, but seriously, if you wish that I had covered something else that you were hoping to hear, if that's the case at the end with the question, raise your hand and ask it. Because if you're thinking it, someone else might be thinking it as well. So we're about to get started. Again, this is our 26-27 attendance clerk training. Josh Whitlow has done these in the past, and he's done a phenomenal job. So I am stepping in. I got big shoes to fill here. So again, if you've got questions, we will do our best as a branch to answer those questions for you. This is just, I believe everyone should have a handout. If you do not have a handout, please let me know, and Rhonda can make sure she gives you one. These are a few things that we're going to go over today. So the first thing I want to recommend that you know about is Campus Community and Campus Passport. Campus Community is a knowledge base. It is wonderful to be able to click on there and go in, and it has a great search function. So up here at the top, oh, I forgot I have a pointer. Look at that. It's got a great search function, and just make sure when you are looking at the knowledge base that if it is something Kentucky specific, you will see Kentucky, KY, kind of in parentheses. So just make sure if you're looking at something and it says CO, you know that's not Kentucky, that's the Colorado, okay? So just make sure, CO is Colorado, right? Okay. I just wanted to make sure you weren't laughing because I don't know the initials for Colorado. All right, perfect. All right. So That is something that, oh, and look, it even has a beautiful state-specific information little box here. This is the new look. I did try to update the slides to our new look. How's everybody adjusting to the new look? I don't hear too many snarls. I'm still learning. I'm still learning myself. I am. You know what? The best thing I have found so far is that favorites button. Isn't that a beautiful thing? That favorites. So that little star, it's wonderful. Okay. The next thing that we would like to tell you about is Campus Passport. Now, Kentucky does have, we do pay for some Campus Passport, but it's just for the on-demand classes. Anything else your district would be responsible for purchasing, but there are Kentucky, like I said, on-demand courses out there, and they're really good. So just you may want to take a peek at those. Oh, you're good. I believe so. Right here, I believe it says once you go to the next screen, it says new on-demand courses. And there's a course catalog too, and it should mention on there whether it's on demand or a course that you would have to purchase. Okay. Oh, and I've got to remember to repeat questions. So her question was, is there a place to search for the on-demand? And it looks like there is. All right. Moving right along, we have our KDE website. We have district school support. That is our division. And let's see. I wanted to bring to your attention that this is where you can go to find any and all documents related to attendance. Okay. So if you click on district school support, you'll notice a drop-down menu, but you don't have to do anything. Just click on district school support, and it's going to take you to this district school support page right here. Okay. This is the Kentucky, the KSIS, Infinite Campus Data Standards. I believe if you were in last session, Sasha mentioned that. That is a great place. They have everything from enrollment to attendance to questions on, here we go. Courses, early graduation, English learners, just anything there that you may need to know about. Yeah, I also want to direct you to our page, our branches page. That is, you would click on district school support. Okay. Once you've done that, you will click over here at the bottom left. You'll see student enrollment and pupil attendance program documents. This is a very important page. So I really recommend that you bookmark, because this is where you are going to get the pupil attendance manual. We call that the PAM. I call that an attendance clerk's and DPP's little Bible. Okay. As far as your job, it's got everything in there that you need to know about attendance and anything with in regards to student attendance. Okay. Any questions? All right. I was talking about the PAM. This is, we have recently updated it. We recently added it to our website. So if you haven't got on there to bookmark the 26-27 PAM, I highly recommend that you do that. We do update that every year. And this just lists, I'm not going to read the slides to you. I'm not going to test your intelligence here. But those are just a list of things that you can find within the pupil attendance manual. Why do we take attendance? I like to have feedback, and this is not necessarily the best place. Why do we take attendance? Anybody want to? Pardon? So you know who's in your building. That's a great reason. What's another reason you take attendance? That's how you get your funding, 100%. So not only is it about safety, it's about funding. Because guess what? We can't run our district, we can't run our schools without funding, can we? So that is why we We do it. And it is a law. The law says we have to. It determines the amount of funding that your district receives. Guess what? Elementary school teachers, you already know this. I mean, teachers, elementary attendance clerks, your teachers have to take attendance every day, right? As well as everybody else. Everybody has to take attendance every day. But you are only required to take attendance, post attendance in the mornings. I'm not talking about your check-in, check-out log, just your morning attendance where you're using the attendance wizard. And if you are a new clerk and you don't know what that is, pay close attention when we get there. I have went to a district before where the attendance clerk did not know what the attendance wizard was. God bless her soul. She would click on every single student and manually enter whether they were absent that day. Could you imagine? The wizard is your friend. I know that it's gasping. Everyone is gasping. The wizard is your friend. Attendance clerks for high schools. Your teachers, middle schools and high schools, your teachers have to mark attendance every period. I don't care if they don't like it. And you don't either because it's the law. It doesn't matter if they don't like it. It is the law. You have to take attendance every period. Okay. And I've got some more to say about that, but I'll wait just a little bit. We're going to keep going. What is Kentucky state attendance? Well, like I said, it's the law. We have to do it. It's based on an underlying foundation, and we're about to talk about our foundation. All right. Kentucky attendance, it calculates in two different ways. It calculates via truancy and funding. Now, what that means, everyone ever seen an attendance register? Okay. So an attendance register shows you exactly what happened, whether they were present, whether they were absent. If they checked out early, it'll show the number of minutes or the percent of day that they missed in those little bitty check boxes on your attendance register, right? Then we track our attendance via funding. Now, the ADM ADA report, we'll talk more about that later, but it has an option to run it by funding. So when you do that, it's looking at the student's scheduled day. It's looking at the things that are behind the scene, how the calendar is set up for your school, and whether that student is going to get funding for that. Now, we just said that it's important to take attendance because of safety, because of funding, right? And so with those two things, we want our register and our ADM ADA report to match, right? All right, and we're going to talk more about that later. So raise your hand if you're a brand new attendance clerk and like brand new this year and have never touched a monthly report yet. Okay, so we do have a few friends. I'm so glad you're here today. So if you have questions on what I'm saying, please ask. Because you know what I found in education? You know what we do a lot of times? We use like acronyms. When I came to KDE, they kept saying all of these acronyms, and I was like, hold up. You have to wait. What is that? What is OSIL? What does KSIS stand for? I didn't know all these things. So if I say something like that just because out of habit, please ask if you want to know what I'm talking about, okay? And if I don't, I have friends back there who will. Okay, Kentucky, what we do is we calculate attendance on whole day, half day, okay? Have you ever heard of that? So it's either you're present all day, you're present half the day, or you're not present at all. And you could say that about the attendance. You're either absent all day, absent half a day, or you're not absent at all. So let me go here. This is you will find this in the PAM, and this is the table that I refer to a lot when I'm talking to DPPs or KSIS admins or even some attendance clerks. This is how you are funded for attendance. Okay. So you are funded a whole day if they are present at least 65% of the school day. They are present a half a day if they are present at least 16% of the school day. Anything less than that, they are marked absent for the whole day. So I don't know if you've ever heard my veterans that are here, if you've ever heard the word key times of when a student checks in or checks out. This is what it's talking about. So the district I used to be in years ago, we were an 8 to 3 school district with a 25-minute lunch. And so our key time for students to check out was 12:31. When parents come in to check out their student, if you are allowing them to write on your log, which you don't have to, by the way, you can take charge, it's your log. You can have them sign it, but you can fill it out. If you've got questions about that, we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But if you are allowing your parents to write on your log and they come in at 12:31, what time are they going to put on that log? 12:30. Exactly, because we round. It's just human nature, is what we do. So I taught my attendance clerks at my prior district, when it's around that key time, we don't put a time on our log until that student leaves the building. Make sense? Make sense? Because guess what? It's helpful for us. It's a win-win situation. Because if they leave, using my old district as an example, at 12:31 or later, they're going to be counted present all day. It's just going to be a tardy. And that means your district will be funded for that student the entire school day. Anybody? Mind's blown? Okay. I have a 9-year-old, and that little 9-year-old, he's friendly. He's sweet as sugar. And he has a very personal relationship with the school nurse. He just loves her to death. He does. He sees her often. And so I know when I go to pick up my little and I go to pick him up from elementary school, even though his classroom is way over here, when he leaves, he's going to circle around the building so he can wave at his favorite school nurse. Because guess what she gives him? She gives him like peppermints or suckers or something like that. So he makes sure, and I know when he comes up there, but I'm saying that story as an example. The students aren't like, when the parents come to pick them up, it may take them 4, 5, 6 minutes to get to the front office, right? So when it's around one of those key times, that's when I think if you have the ability and you're not using one of those electronic Identikit or Raptor, and you have the ability to go in and change the time to when they actually left the building, I think that's beautiful, because that could help your district and make sure they're getting the proper amount of funding. Any questions on that? I had a little bit of a bunny trail there. I do that often.
I think I know this, but in figuring the 65% of your day, is that student instructional minutes or the total scheduled day? I mean, transition time counts as instructional minutes, but the lunch, do you need to deduct that from as far as getting the 65% whole day?
I believe it is calculated on your standard day, is my understanding. So I think it's calculated on your standard day. So whatever your standard day minutes would be, it's not including those non-instructional minutes. That is my understanding. Does anyone, my back row, have anything else? I'm good? Okay. Very good. I like it when they give me a thumbs up. Any questions about that? About the whole day, half day? Okay. If you don't know what those key times are, ask your DPP, ask your DPP assistant, and if they don't know and they need help figuring that out, they can reach out to us and we can help them figure out what those times are. Okay? All right. Prerequisites for entering attendance into Infinite Campus. All right. So state attendance codes. This is a list of approved state attendance codes that you can use that are out there. Some of them are optional, but most of them are Um, they're just every district that I see when I go audit, most of them always have these. Now, granted, basic training, I'm probably not going to see that in an elementary school, and that's okay. But this is a list of the codes. If you were here in the last session, Sasha went over with you that this is something that we audit whenever we go into a district. And guess what, attendance clerks, you're off the hook. It doesn't have to do with you, okay? It is central office's responsibility, the DBP's responsibility to make sure they have these codes set up properly. All right. One of the new codes is moral instruction. So if you see that out there and your DPP has not talked to you about that yet, don't use it. Okay? Seriously, don't use it unless you have a DPP that has told you a student's name, what they're doing, when they are doing moral instruction. That is when you can use that, okay? So that is a new, relatively new code that we've seen in the last year or so. And so if you've got questions, there are several things that have to happen in order to use the moral instruction code. All right, so this does show you where the attendance codes are found. Attendance clerks, again, you won't need to go into this, but if I have any district employees here, if you want to create a new exempt code, you must have a conversation, an email with someone in my branch, okay? So that has to be approved either by Rhonda, and then sometimes we talk about it as a team as well, but we try to keep a good handle on those exempt codes. Any question? And I'm not talking about excuse codes, district. You all can make as many excuse codes as you want. If it's medically excused, if it's doctor note, parent note, nurse sent home, you all can create as many of those as you want. And I recommend that you don't, but you can make as many that make sense for your district. All right, other prerequisites, that's a hard word to say, is we do have to make sure our calendar setup is proper. We have to make sure our term dates are in there proper, our period schedule setup, our school months, and our courses. So school months, those who have been an attendance clerk before, you have heard about end of month. And that's what we're going to talk about after we get finished with these slides. We're going to talk about how to balance monthly reports. But the school months are 20 school days. That includes holidays. That includes teacher PD days. So even though you have a school month of 20 days, it might only be 17 instructional days. Okay, so it's a school month is not end of October or end of August, end of September. A school month varies because it depends on when you start school and when your teachers started their PD. And our course setup courses must be marked for attendance in order for attendance to be calculated, which also means a student must have a schedule. A student must have a full schedule in order to take attendance. So, attendance clerks, you have a new student that comes in your building and you have a new counselor or a registrar who is taking their time putting that schedule in. Guess what you get to do? You can say, Ruthie told me to do this. You get to go knock on their door and say, hey, I can't, the teachers can't, and I can't take attendance for this student until they have a full schedule. Okay, so we have to make sure that the student's schedule is in there in order to take attendance. All right, entering into Infinite Campus. Now, this is what the teacher side looks like. So our elementary schools. So when your teacher logs in of a morning and they're looking at their homeroom and they come in and they see these cute little pictures and they have they can mark it present or absent. Now with Kentucky, most of the time we do not mark the T. Okay. If you are a school that chooses to do that second period on for behavior purposes and have questions about that, we can talk about that later. But in general, Kentucky does not mark tardies here. We mark tardies from our check-in, check-out log. That's how we know if a student is tardy to school. Now, if you're wanting to do a tardy to class, we can talk about that later, but I'm not going to get into that right now. So again, elementary school teachers, middle school, high school teachers, attendance is super important. It's not just about safety, it's about funding, okay? Elementary school, believe me, I worked with 6 attendance clerks. I was in a pretty small district, and I had 6 attendance clerks, and every time we met together, guess what? It was the one thing that they always fussed about. Teachers taking attendance. Don't they? So either one of two things happen. In the mornings, elementary school teachers, whenever you are getting ready to post your attendance, and we do like to recommend that you have a set time to post attendance. Whether you're given the teachers 10, 15 minutes first part of the day to start looking at that classroom monitor, which we will look at here shortly. But whenever you have your set time and you have to start picking up the phone to call Mr. Smith because Mr. Smith hasn't posted his attendance, one of two things is going to happen. Mr. Smith is going to pick up the phone and he's probably going to either drop it back down. And then you refresh and bam, his attendance is posted. Or you're going to call Mr. Smith and he's going to pick up and say, I am so sorry. I promise I'll never do this again. And you expect him tomorrow to also not have taken his attendance, right? That's just what happens. All right. So, but just remember, I'm going to hold off on that thought because I'm going to wait till I get to the classroom monitor. But this is what it looks like from the teacher side of things to take teacher attendance. For the teachers to take attendance. Okay. So here's our classroom monitor. This is what, as an attendance clerk, you'll go to first thing after you've set that time. So whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't recommend it being much more than that because the littles or the bigs can switch classes pretty quickly in the morning. So we want to make sure that we give them enough time to get settled and post their morning attendance. But we don't want to give them too much time because we don't want to lose that opportunity for them to take proper attendance. So when they take attendance, you will see that the little pink box around those numbers there will turn green. Now, I tend to be a hair OCD on a few things. And so as an attendance clerk, if I was at a middle school or high school, when I look at my classroom monitor, it would make me really, really happy to see all green, a sea of green. Attendance clerks, middle school, high school, does that make you happy when you, at the end of the day, and you look and you see a sea of green? You're like, I've got such angels for teachers. Teachers, you know what I meant. But if you've got some pink, sprinkled in throughout your day, which most of you will, I'm going to ask you not to do something, okay? I'm going to ask you, don't go in and click each one of those pink at the end of the day and go in, click it, save it, so it just turns to green. Don't do that because it doesn't help anyone. Yes, it makes it pretty, but don't do that because guess what? You don't have an osmosis wand in your desk. And if you do, tell me about it so I can use it too. But you don't have an osmosis wand in your desk to take that attendance for that teacher. Now, beginning of school, let's give everybody some grace. First few weeks of school, let's be nice. Let's make sure that we follow what our DPP wants us to do. Call the teachers, make sure, remind them to take their attendance. But at the end of the day, it's the teacher's job to post attendance second period and on. Remember, it's the attendance clerk's responsibility to make sure first period or homeroom attendance gets posted, right? But anything later than that, now, there is, I want to show you, oh, where'd my clicker go? I want to show you, oh, that just shows you, hey, you can tell that it's turned green because it says we have 15 out of 19 students present in that course. And over here we have a pink, and it shows that that course hasn't been taken yet. All right, so this is one of my favorite little reports. This is called the Incomplete Teacher Attendance Report. And I think it is a wonderful idea for you to print this at the end of the day. Again, let's give grace the first of school because everybody is just trying to hang on tight, right? We're all just trying to survive those first few days of school. But after that, print this incomplete teacher attendance. And if it's okay with your DPP, if it's okay with them, make sure that you save this. You either print it or save it to your computer or snip it or do whatever you've got to and send it in an email or hand deliver it to a principal and let them know these are the teachers that I'm having trouble with getting them to post their attendance. And there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Because again, it's not just about funding, it's also about safety, right? So we need to know what students are in those classes. And so now what I am not saying, this literally happened. I had a DPP call me and they said, oh, Ruthie, you need to be careful what you tell these districts because I have an attendance clerk that came and I got a call from that came to one of your trainings. And then I got a call from a very upset principal. And I said, oh no, what did I say? And they said, well, the attendance clerk printed off that form or that report, took it to the principal. Not my job. I did not tell you that that is not your job. Did I say it's the teacher's job to post attendance? Absolutely it is. But I did not tell you that it's not your job to make sure the teachers post attendance. Okay. I want you to follow what your DPP tells you to do. If they want you to call a teacher every single period to make sure they post, you do that. Okay. Now, do you have to do that if your DPP says, I don't care if you do it or not? It's because it's the teacher's responsibility. Well, that, again, district decision. So Ruthie did not say that you get to slap this report down into principal's face and say, this is not my job. Okay? So everybody understands that, right? Okay, good. But no, seriously, this is very helpful. And again, it's some of the teachers, I get it. My husband is a teacher now. And he went from college students to high school students. And when he started, I told him, I was like, if you don't do anything all day, you better take attendance. Your wife is an attendance auditor. Okay. If I find out that you're not taking morning attendance or period attendance, I am going to kick your booty. Okay. Are we good? Okay. Just making sure that we're good. No fire. Yeah. I would hope it would be much louder than that, right? But nobody, I think everybody's comfortable. Good. We'll just all be in here together. Great. All right. I'm going to get a drink of water after that one. All right. Any questions about the classroom monitor, about teachers posting attendance? One thing I like to add when I do these trainings throughout the throughout the state, I like to mention, especially your elementary school teachers, I like to say, if you've got a teacher who's having a problem taking morning attendance, find the Ruthie, find that big mouthed kid, find that little kid that has like, a little extra maybe leadership skills, or they think they have leadership skills. Find those and say, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to help me remember, help Mr. Smith know at morning before 8:10, I have to take attendance. Can you help me remember to do that? And guess what? Those littles take those jobs very seriously. My little came home and told me that he was a line leader. And that's exactly what he said. He said, Mom, this is a serious job. So they take those responsibilities very seriously. So, but yeah, that's just does anybody else have any comments on what you do at your district to get your teachers to post attendance? Raise your hand if you do, and I'll give you the mic. Sure. Remember, we got to do the mic.
What is the impact if the classroom monitor is, some classes are left red at the end of the day?
That's a great question. So he asked, what is the impact if the classroom monitors has some of those pink or red or coral, whatever color that it has? I can go back here. So what is the impact now? So the impact is, as long as it's not first period or homeroom. If it's that first period or homeroom, that's a big no-no, especially attendance clerks. When I come in to do an attendance audit, Sasha, Becky, we better never see pink in that very first column, because you know what that means? Your attendance clerk did not post attendance for that day. And that's huge. Okay. So you would definitely be written up for that on an audit report. Okay. And if you if you didn't mark the appropriate students absent that first period, then you're getting funding that you're not supposed to get. Right. So that's an impact of not taking first period attendance. Now, I was saying with our middle school and high school, if you've got some pink scattered in there, it doesn't have any financial impact. But the law says your teachers have to take period attendance. Okay. So they have to take period attendance, and sorry. They have to take period attendance, and I'm sorry, I got off track. My bad. Somebody tell me what I was saying. Something about period attendance. Teachers take your. Thank you. All right. So yes. So there's no financial impact on if you have second through sixth period, second through eighth period, how many periods you have a day, as long as there's no financial impact, but it is the law. So what I tell my attendance clerks, you're not on the hook for this. Your teachers, your principal are on the hook, which means it'll be written in a report that says Simpson County, Franklin Simpson High School teachers do not post attendance according to KRS, blah, 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 blah. Absolutely. I don't care if you have to corner them. They have to take attendance. If you have to run them out on the playground, you're going to find them, and they're going to have to take attendance. Not quite, but you can go to your principal and say, hey, Mr. Smith, I cannot find him. I have no idea where he is or his students are, and I have to have morning attendance. Help me find this teacher. Okay. Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Okay.
Students that do not start the day in your building that are co-op, say you've got 150 kids that they're not in the building first and second period. The person that they're listed under, they're taking their attendance based on the 10. they're taking their attendance based on their 10 hours a week of co-op pay stubs, corresponding with employers. And of course, because you want to get funding for those to start their day. You know, some of these, you know, these career counselors that we have names under, they have 10 rosters every period they're taking attendance on, and there's no way really to lay eyes on the kids, but it's the correspondence and attendance taking via employer with the agreements. Is that correct?
Oh, that's a big old can of worms. And Ruthie's up here with the microphone who's being recorded, and it's going to be posted on the KDE website. No big deal. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you. Can we snip that out, Rhonda? No big deal. No. Okay. So listen, the rule technically is if they are not in your building and they are not being supervised by a certified personnel teacher, then technically those courses are not supposed to be marked as attendance. Okay. Now, I'm going to say something and I want my boss or my team to correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't even know if I should say it. Okay. Now, if you've got a situation where they come to the classroom, you take attendance, you see their bodies, then they get on a bus and then they go and then you have a really good process in place to account for those students. And so, you know, the teacher has taken the morning attendance because they've seen the students in the classroom. They go get on a bus. Whether they sign out, they sign back in when they're bused back to the classroom or back to the school. I think you've done a pretty good dang job of doing due diligence on taking attendance on that student. And if it was my district and I was auditing, I probably would be okay with that. But I would have to get from my upper management, I would have to get the okay on that, okay? Okay, thumbs up they gave me. Whew, Mark, I was getting nervous. Goodness. Oh, he's being so good. He's being so good. Look at him. I love it. So, but technically, if you don't lay eyes on those students and they're not in your building, technically that's a performance-based course. Now, it is supposed to be up in the standard day. That is the difference between like virtual performance-based courses. Okay, attendance clerks, bear with me just a second. Hang on tight, okay? Because a lot of this is going on, and some of it still goes over my head, okay? So just bear with me for just a second as I talk, you know, how we schedule those courses outside the standard day. Now, CTE classes, we have been told that they want those scheduled inside the standard day so it doesn't mess up their pathways, okay? But technically, that is not supposed to be an attendance course. Do I have agreement on the back row? Are they pleading the fifth? I think they're pleading the fifth here. So I am the one that gets nailed to the wall. You want me to repeat it? That if a certified teacher is not with that student and they are not in the building and you can't lay eyes on that student, then in our eyes, that's a performance-based course. That is not an attendance-based course. Okay, they gave me a nod and a thumbs up. Okay, so. Okay, for those students when they leave.
Should they do the sign in, sign out log thing, or how do?
A separate log, because that you're not checking them in or out, technically. So were you here last session? Yes. So, okay. Okay, so Sasha, at that very last screen that she showed you on the attendance audit, what we do is we go and we ask, do you have students who leave your building through the school day? And if you do, what is your process? So that would be a response that you could give, hey, this is how we track attendance for these students who leave our building to go X, Y, maybe they're going to GT in this other building way over here. And you can keep a separate log or whatever. That is correct. That is correct because that course is not marked for attendance. then you will not see that course. So again, attendance clerks, bear with me for just a second. So just remember, if I have any DPPs or scheduling wizards in here, just know you can't have in-seat and performance-based students in the same course. It has to be a separate course setup, okay? Okay, any other questions? Yes, Sasha? You have a question for me, or do you have a comment? Okay, do you want the microphone? Oh, gosh. Yes. We didn't cover that because the example they gave was not about that. But there is such a thing as a performance-based course that can be marked as attendance. But that is if you see them. They are with a certified teacher. And in that case that again, attendance clerks, hang on. If they are in your building, and they're in the library and they're being supervised by a certified librarian, then yes, those courses can be marked as attendance, even though they're performance-based. Yes. But in Chris's example that he gave, it was these students, we don't see them until they come to school third period. Okay, any other questions about that? Yes, sir. Oh, and I forgot about you, ma'am. I'm so sorry. Let me get her first, please. Thank you.
I was just going to comment on this gentleman over here. He was saying, what are the repercussions, I think, of teachers not taking attendance throughout the day. I'm a middle school attendance clerk secretary. So what I do is, of course, our attendance taken at the beginning of the day. And yes, I do have to go run them down to get that at the beginning of the day. And when I run my report of them not taking the attendance throughout the day, I send my teacher an individual email who did not take their attendance, and I correct copy it to my principal, and I give him a copy of that also. And then I keep copies, and then he has copies, and then he meets with the teachers.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. Did everybody hear what she said? I love that. So she's not only communicating with her principal, but she's communicating with the teachers. And I think if you're going to do that, I think it's good for them to know what the expectations are. That, hey, if you don't take attendance, this is what I have to do. And it's not because Penny wants to be a stickler. It's because Penny has to follow the law. Okay?
Not only affects my audit, but it also is it's safety for the student.
100%. Thank you, Penny.
So just back to the importance of posting attendance after first period and trying to make sure our especially my high school principals understand the importance of their teachers to post attendance. So a lot of times I'll have kids at the high school have college, virtual performance-based classes, maybe first, second period, college classes, whatever. They actually don't come on campus until third period. And they're in-person attendance-based classes, maybe third, fourth, and fifth, especially if that senior just needs a couple classes. And then they'll do school to work, performance-based the rest of the day. So, and my principals and my attendance clerks understand the importance of posting attendance at third, fourth, and fifth period, because that's the only 3 periods are actually in-person attendance-based. And if they don't do that, the impact is no funding for the day for those 3 periods, right?
Or if they were absent, because technically everyone is counted present until marked absent. Yes. Exactly. So if you have a student who was coming in third period and your third period teacher didn't mark them absent, and it went that way through the rest of the day, then yes, you're receiving funding when you should not be. Yeah. So that's to add to your question about the repercussions of taking attendance. So what have we all learned? Teachers must take attendance, especially period attendance for middle school and high school. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Sure. Yes. Yes. So what she said is just make sure that we are aware of whatever that first period or homeroom has marked for the beginning of the day. It is that the entire day until a check-in or a check-out is entered. So if they take attendance incorrectly, the repercussions are you might have a mad parent later, that my kid was there. Hey, guess what? Let me tell you a story. I love stories. So when I worked in a district, I had an attendance clerk, and she came running in my office. She's actually one of my best friends to this day. But at the time, she came running into my office, and she said some not PG words. And she said, Ruthie, guess what I did? I've marked the entire school absent. It can happen. Unfortunately, this is the unfortunate part. Okay, so let me tell you, attendance clerks, if that happens to you, one, don't freak out because it can be fixed. And that's why I said I really want you to make sure that you have a time set in the morning to take your attendance, because at 8:15, if you accidentally mark every student in the building absent, you've got time to fix it before that call goes out. But guess what? She posted that literally 5 minutes before that call went out. It took her at least 7 minutes to get to my office. Okay? Because her school was yonder. So she literally drove, ran in my office, and I'm thinking, bless her heart, why didn't she call me? But I think she was so flustered. That was the biggest horrific day of my life in Simpson County Schools, because not only was every parent calling the school, every parent was calling the board office. I dropped my kid off at school. I put them on the school bus, okay? So as Marissa said, it is very important that we get our first period and homeroom attendance correct, okay? Again, attendance cards, if you mark everybody absent, it's okay. We can fix it. Don't freak out unless you did it 1 to 2 minutes before that call goes out, and then you need to freak out, okay? Because it's going to be a mess. At some point, they have to. Yeah. Oh, do they really? By experience. Okay. Okay. And she just went home for the day. That's what happened, right? Now, any other questions about the classroom monitor or posting attendance daily? Okay. I'm glad we can have a little fun. This might make for a fun recording later, but it's all right. All right, attendance clerks, you will have subs in your building. It's possible on the first day of school, you might even have a sub in your building. So you need to be able to know how to run a sub attendance roster. Now, remember when I was telling you that it's the teacher's responsibility to take attendance? It is your responsibility to take attendance for that substitute, okay? Because they do not have infinite campus access, nor should they. And if they do, then I think that's a conversation that you need to talk to your DPP about. But if you've got a sub in the building, one of two things can happen. You give them this roster, and then they can mark on the roster, send it back up. Or I worked in a school district for 14 years, and I remember seeing these sticky notes all over this attendance clerk's computer where it said, like, this teacher had this these students absent. I'm like, what are those? And she said, those are my subs. They just bring me sticky notes. I'm like, okay. So you can do it however you want to do it, but you will have to go in, click on that course in the attendance, in the classroom monitor, and take that attendance and save it for that substitute. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So her question was, there's a signature line on that sub attendance roster, and am I okay if the sub doesn't sign it? Yeah, well, we don't audit that. You can have your own district, maybe if your DPP has a district policy where they want that signature, then that's district process. I'm not going to tell you have or can't. Like you have to or you don't have to have that. Okay. All right. All right, this is what I was saying. You have to go in, you would click on the course for the sub attendance and you would mark them absent because it defaults to the present. So you have to mark them absent. You get that. Attendance wizard. All right. Has anybody never used an attendance wizard here before? Because we did have some brand new ones. Have you been shown the attendance wizard yet? All right, girl. Well, this is where make sure we make some notes on our paper. So this is really important. So the attendance wizard is how you take the morning attendance for your school. Okay. So what you will do is at your set time, I don't know, what do you, middle school, high school? High school? Okay. So whatever time that you start school, let's say you start at 8. And at 8:10, you're starting to look at the classroom monitor, making sure that everyone has posted their attendance, making sure that first period is all beautiful and green, because we can't have any pinks in that first period. So once that first column is beautiful and green, then you can go to your attendance wizard. There is the search there for the attendance wizard. And what you're going to do is you get to ignore this first section. On the second section, what you're going to do is, I believe it's auto selected absent, but it just makes sure it says absent. And then here, unknown. The second box has to say unknown. Because remember I said that, and even Marissa brought it up, you determine what the attendance is for that student for the entire day. Okay. So this is what you're doing. So you're going to post attendance after the teachers have marked who is present, who is absent. So you're going to change this to unknown, and you're going to click the search box. When you click the search, in the results, over here on the right-hand side, you will have a list of names. Depending on the size of your school, I really hope it's not 355 students in this example. This must have been the last day of school. All right, so I really, but you're going to have a list of students here, okay? So what you need to do next is select all. You're going to select all. Are we good so far? All right, once you have clicked select all, it turns blue. You see all of your students selected here. And we are going to do, on the saving mode, we have to click hold A. And the date will default to today's date, the date that you're doing it. And the attendance code is going to be unexcused absence or unexcused. Different districts have different codes for their unexcused absence. I see U, I see UA, I see UEX. I've seen different examples, but you're going to want to choose the attendance code that says unexcused. Okay. Once you've done that, you at the records option, you go to the second bullet that says overwrite existing records. Once you've done that, then you click save. Once you've clicked save, you're going to get a little pop-up box that says that these records have been changed. Any questions about using the attendance wizard? Please use the attendance wizard. Don't be like a friend that I had in Western Kentucky who clicked every single student in their building to mark them present or absent. Don't do that. Any questions about the attendance wizard? Do you think you got it? You made some good notes? Beautiful. All right, so once that attendance is posted, this is what it'll look like. So pretend it is 5/20/2026, and this student was absent. And once you post, this is what it'll look like. You will see your unexcused absence posted for that day for that student. All right. We're about an hour in. Are you all okay if I finish the attendance wizard portion and then we'll take a short break? Okay, great. So we're going to take a short break here in just a few minutes. So this is a way you can also use the attendance wizard to batch students. An example, you have students who are going to be going on a field trip, and you don't want to have to touch every single student individually. So this is a way that you can batch those attendance records, okay? So this is where you can use that box up here. Or let's say it's maybe the whole first grade is going to the zoo for their field day. If that's the case, then you can just change the grade to 1, pull it into the search, and then once it's over here, then you can move it over to the target list, okay? If you have a list of names of maybe students who are going to a beta conference, something like that, and you maybe got 15 students, then what you can do is search for each of those students, bring them over into the target list, and then you're going to select all, and then you will go down and do the same thing down here. You will do whole day. Make sure you have, well, once you click whole day, it turns this check-in, check-out time turns into a date, and then you can change your attendance code to field trip. Now, what if you have students who are they're going on this beta trip, but they're not leaving the building until 1 o'clock? So you could do this. You could still bring them over into this target list. You could do a check-in or out. Put that check out time in there. Change the code to field trip or the appropriate code and click save. Or don't forget, always click overwrite records and then click save. Any questions on that? Now, it will not let you do this for EHOs. You'll get an error message. So not every code will let you use the attendance wizard to batch it, but it still can be helpful, especially when you have those field trips or certain classes or groups of students. Any questions? All righty, are we ready to get started at back? We're going to be talking about check-ins and check-outs. All right, great. Hope you guys got to do a little bit of a stretch, walk around for a second or two. So we're going to go ahead and continue these slides, and we're going to be talking about our check-in and check-outs. So these check-in and check-outs are going to be coming from your log, And we mentioned the log earlier. And so this is where you have students that, and this is a state requirement, that you have students when they come late into your building, they must sign or sign in or sign out. Okay. With elementary schools, it is a state requirement that parent signatures are there for sign outs. They are not required for sign in unless it's part of your district policy, but they are required for sign outs. Middle school, high school, as auditors, we do not audit if there is a signature for middle school, high school. However, if it is your district policy that they require a signature for those sign outs, then you continue to do so. Okay. Now, how many here use electronic logs? Do we have any that use electronic logs? What system do you use? She's new. Okay. Oh, checkmate. That's not one I've heard of, but I'm sure it exists. I believe you. You'll find out shortly. Anybody else use electronic logs back there in the corner? Oh, it exists. It's called Checkmate. Yeah, you have a friend. So before you leave, go run over there to the corner and say, tell me about it. Yeah, make a new friend for sure. So does everybody else use paper logs for the most part? Okay. And that's totally acceptable, totally fine. Just know, I don't know if you were here for the first session, those who use electronic logs, just make sure that it has all of the state required fields on the printout. And I'm sure Sasha covered that earlier whenever she did her training. But just make sure that you can print out, and in elementary schools, make sure that you have a place for either a parent signature or a typed signature to be able to print out with those records. Okay, everybody else using paper logs, like I said, the log is yours. You are responsible for that log. So you can, again, I'm not going to tell you how to do the log. I just get to tell you what the log has to have on it. I get to tell you that the log has to match what's in Infinite Campus has to match the log. But as far as like how you fill out your log, whether you let the parent do it, whether you do it, that's up to you. But just know sometimes it's really, really hard. I've been auditing some districts and they let the parents fill it out. And you know what I found? Parents, they put the wrong date. I can't read their writing. Maybe they're physicians and they have terrible penmanship and it's really hard for me to read. If that is the case, as auditors, I know I tell my districts, it's okay to legibly write the student's name where that doctor or that person who has poor penmanship did a scribble. Okay, it's totally okay. And then if they put the incorrect time, put a mark through it and put the correct time. It takes your little Johnny 7 minutes to walk around the building because he has to say hi to his favorite nurse before he comes up front. If that's the case, and especially if it has crossed over that key time that we talked about earlier, mark out that time and put the correct time that the little Johnny left the building. Okay. The other thing, one second, I'll get right to you. One thing now a lot of people are concerned about FERPA, HIPAA, all of that stuff. For us, it's FERPA because I know parents a lot of times will say HIPAA because that's the most thing that they're, familiar with, because maybe they don't want people to know that little Johnny is going to the dentist or what have you. So then if that's the case, then your district will have their own policy, but you really should protect that student information. And we recommend that you are following FERPA guidelines. And so whether it's with a cover sheet or some type of carbon copy, or I've seen all different things used. Most of the time it's like just like a little cover sheet that the attendance clerks puts on top, and then it just shows that next blank line for the parent to complete, or you complete it. Any questions? You had a question?
Talk about marking out. Do I have to initial it that I made that change?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I would do whatever your district wants you to do. If I'm an auditor and there's a time marked out and the correct time is entered, if it doesn't have an initial, I'm not going to get excited. Yeah, it's not going to make me mad. So, but if your district likes you to do that, I know, like, because that's kind of like if you make a mistake on a check, you mark it out, you put the correct time. I mean, you put the correct whatever, and then you initial it. Like, I did that. I think that's great to do, but you don't have to. Any other questions about the log? Okay. So, like I said, oh, I get to tell another funny story. And I really wish Rhonda was in here because it's funny. We went and did an audit, and so all of a sudden I start hearing my boss say, "It's the law." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, she's gone full redhead, hasn't she?" And so let me tell you what this attendance clerk did. They were trying to be efficient, which I encourage you all to think outside the box. But when you think outside the box, you have to remember you still have to follow the law. Okay. So this attendance clerk, she gave our boss the checkouts, and my boss kindly said, "May I see your check-ins?" She said, "I don't have that." And she was like, "Well, why not?" "Because I don't need it." "Oh, what do you mean you don't need it?" And then that's when the boss says, "It's the law." So it is the law that you have to have a check-in and a check-out log. What she was doing was as the students were coming into the building, she would enter them into Infinite Campus. Now that sounds efficient, but that's not the law. So make sure that we are recording our check-ins and our check-outs on a log, whether that is going to be electronic or whether that is paper. Oh, one other story. I love stories because I think it makes it relatable. And I like to get a little giggle out of y'all. But so I also had an attendance clerk one time. She thought she was thinking outside the box. And she thought using the attendance batch wizard would be a great way to enter those check-ins and check-outs. You're like, "Oh, that's a pretty good idea, Ruthie. I might do that." Don't do that. Okay. This is why. Because what she was doing is she was batching those times together. So if it said a student was coming in at 8:29, 8:30, 8:31, 8:32, she'd check them all in at 8:30. You can't do that. It has to be whatever is on the log has to be what's in Infinite Campus. So if it says 8:29 on the log, I'm going to look in Infinite Campus and it better say 8:29. Now, as an auditor and a human, I know that we're not robots. I don't expect you to be a robot, but we do expect you to have good accuracy. Okay? It's going to be okay. Do not cry on your auditor if you make a mistake. And especially if I have any Western Kentucky people here today, please don't cry on me because I get really flustered and then I don't know what to do. And then I'm trying to hug you and I'm crossing all those lines. And then it's just very uncomfortable for everybody. So don't cry on us. Okay. It's okay if you make a mistake. But if we see, because you're human, it's okay. Okay. But if we see that you are, it's just a continual, every other entry into Infinite Campus is different than what's on the log, then you have a process error and we need to work together and fix it. So just any questions on that? There is an ad hoc out there. I should have put it in to the presentation, I didn't. So I'm going to footnote, ask your DPP or ask your Infinite Campus person at your school about the check-in, check-out ad hoc in Infinite Campus. Ask them about that because that can be really helpful for you at the end of each day to be able to print, whether you print it to screen or you print it out. You can compare your log to what you've entered into Infinite Campus, and it can be really helpful, especially on those crazy Mondays and crazy Fridays. All right, so check in, check out. This is how you are going to do. I lost my clicker. All right, you are going to click New, and it will give you the date. Then you will, side note, when you are working with your check-in, check-out log, if you are working a day behind, it's miserable, okay? So I highly recommend, if at all possible, keep up with your check-in and check-out logs, entering that into Infinite Campus. If you can do that same day, it makes your life so much simpler. It really does. Because guess what? If you're working a day behind and you go and click that new button, guess what that date defaults to? The current date. Okay, another story. Story time. I did an attendance clerk. She was a veteran. I was kind of new. And she had to be out for an extended amount of time. And I wanted to go help her. And so what I did was every day or every other day, I would go to her school, help her get caught up on her check-ins and check-outs. You know, I'd been telling her what to do for 5 or 6 years. So, you know, I thought I knew what I was doing. And so when she gets back from her leave of absence, she comes in my office, gives me a little hug and says, "Thank you, Ruthie, so much for helping out, but don't ever do it again." And I said, "What did I do?" She said, "You had my dates," because she was very particular. Attendance clerks, I've learned, are very particular, and you all are very conscientious of what is entered in the attendance world. And so she went back to double check me. Oh, I made a mess. And she told me, "Don't ever do that again." So I can tell you what to do, but to sit in your seat and actually do it is two different things. But seriously, when I was working on that day behind, trying to enter that log into Infinite Campus and having to change that date every single time, it's hard. It is, because guess what? You're being interrupted by students, parents, admin, phone, all of those things. So anyway, that was a bunny trail. That was a freebie. I won't charge you for that today. Don't be like Ruthie. Enter in your log correctly and appropriately. But this is where you are going to add your check-in, check-out. I can't keep up with that thing to save my life. It's over here. But enter in your check-in, check-out. You will have a box to choose from. It'll either say action in or action out. You're going to do that. You have a place to make comments. Be careful what you put in the comments. Just know other people can see them. And if your district has, like with the parent portal, I know, like in my district, we had it where the parent could hover over the absence and it would display. So if you say "crazy mama slept in again," crazy mama gonna see it. Okay, so just beware of what you're entering into the comments, and just know that now I think comments are great. Late, sick, nurse, things like that. I think it's great to use comments. I think that's wonderful. Just be careful and make sure you're following your district policy. Like, I know that we made a change in the district that I used to work at. We used to write lice, but then that became an issue. It was embarrassing for the families, and they just didn't want that information out there. So we changed it to like L1, L2. So just make sure you're following whatever your district wants you to put in those comments for certain things. And just be aware that others can read that. So keep the crazy mama comments off there. Once you've done that, you will see an add button. Oh, it's right there. You will see an add button. And once you've clicked add, then you click save. If you click save before add, you got to do it again. So just make sure, my little new attendance clerk here, click add before you click save, because that's a really important. And then once you've done that, you are good to go. Any questions or anything with my veteran, if I have veteran attendance clerks in here, if I've missed anything with entering in, checkouts? No questions? All right, moving on. All right, this is your daily attendance report. Some I've seen some principals like this to be saved and emailed to them just so they have it. It's whatever you all want to do, but this is a way that you can look at each student that has been marked absent or that has had a check-in or a check-out. So any type of attendance event, you can go to the daily attendance report, and I believe right now it's called daily attendance processing report. So you can click that and it will give you a list of students with any type of an attendance event. It's just a fun little page. Sometimes I've seen clerks, if they know that student was absent for the day, I've seen them kind of stay on this screen and they'll click the name, because you can toggle to that individual student's attendance record, and you can do it that way. You can log in their check-in, check-out once you've clicked on their name. Any questions? I believe it does. I believe if you hover over, if you're on this attendance screen and you hover over one of these, it will tell you what time attendance was posted. Now, it won't tell you what time the teacher took it unless Marissa is my Infinite Campus guru back there. I don't know of that. I'm sure there's some type of back-end audit report that you could pull. But as far as seeing when people post attendance or when people add their check-ins or check-outs, you can take your mouse and hover over it, and it should give you a name and give you a time in which that was done. All right, no-shows. We get to talk about no-shows for just a minute. It is the beginning of school. How many people have already started school? I've got a couple. So some of you have not yet. So good. I'm glad you're here today. What is a no-show? A no-show is a student who does not come to school on the first day of school. Okay? When do we mark no-shows? I recommend that you mark, unless you're told differently by your district admin, I recommend that you mark them at the end of the day, because it's possible that little Johnny's crazy mama would just overslept, and so then she's coming in late, and that is, oh, my bad. I keep saying Johnny's crazy mama because my son's name's John, and that's why. So I'm the crazy mama I'm talking about. But a no-show is when a student who is enrolled with your district, so you were expecting them to come on the first day of school, but they don't show up. Okay? Those are your no-show students. And this no-shows are very important because it is part of state reporting. Okay, so if you all have already received a records request for those students and you have full confidence that they're not coming to your district, you can go ahead and go in early and start marking no-shows. You can go ahead and mark them as no show. Let's see. I want to show you a pic. I thought I had a picture here. Do I not have a picture? I don't. My bad. So a no-show, what you're going to do is on the enrollment tab, you are going to mark the start status as no-show. So the start status is changed from EO1 to no-show. There's also a little no-show checkbox. I recommend that you go ahead and click that as well. And then what do you know about this student? Have you received a records request for them? Is it another Kentucky public school? If it is, then you know to put W22. Now, my new attendance clerk, you're like, what's a W22? Well, remember we talked about the pupil attendance manual? There is a list of withdrawal codes and start status codes in that manual. And it's so important that you kind of familiarize yourself with those start codes. And it won't be long that you'll be like W22, move to another Kentucky public school district. You'll do it so much that you'll just end up remembering what those are. Did this student go to homeschool? You're going to mark it a W20. I don't know where this student is. They could be at Disney World. It happens. So if that's the case, you put a W24 because whereabouts are unknown. You do not know where that student is. But the start date and end date will be the same day. So if you start school tomorrow on August 12th, then the start date will be August 12th. The end date will be August 12th. I'll have a start status of no show. I'll have that beautiful little checkbox checked. And then I will have the appropriate end status of what I know. And it's possible you just don't know at the time. Then what I want you to do is mark it as whereabouts unknown because you don't know. Now, later, you might get a records request for that student. Then what we want you to do is go into that student's no-show enrollment and change it from a W24 to a W22 if they're going to another Kentucky public school district. Or you might get an out-of-state because, a lot of northern districts, they don't start until after September. And so if that's the case, they just haven't sent you a records request yet because they haven't started school yet. But you would know to go in and change that in status to a W29 moved out of state. Okay. And I believe Sasha talked to you all earlier about using the end comments, in status comments field. I would encourage you all to use that, like where the student went. Like if they moved to Idaho and went homeschool, then put in there, moved to Idaho, went to homeschool per so-and-so. Or homeschool letters received at district, or student moved back to India per the aunt so-and-so on this date that they. So we ask you to do your due diligence and to make sure that you have good notes. And it's also really helpful. I had this a lot of times when I worked in district where we had law enforcement or detectives come in because they were looking for a family or a student. And it really was helpful that I could pull it up in Infinite Campus and have a good picture of where that student went instead of having to dig through that cumulative file. So I do encourage you to use those end comments, but beware, remember, don't put something crazy in there because other people do read that. Okay? All right. All right. If the student drops out during the summer break, this just tells you how to go in, mark the no-show, and change it to the W25, and that is your dropout. Is it W25 or W24? I think it's W25. All right. Thank you. All right. As with anything, always, always, I know that this is a bunny trail. Okay. So bear with me as we steer away from no shows for just about 30 seconds. Anytime that whether it's you, your registrar, your counselor, make sure that we are always using what's called the student locator, because that will help us not create duplicate students in the state. Okay. And if you do create a duplicate student by accident, it's okay. We can fix it. We have a lovely lady in our branch named Samantha Ingstrom. She has a beautiful little spreadsheet you can go to, and you can put in the name. This is what I did. I've created a duplicate, and she will clean it up for you. But if at all possible, we try not to create duplicate students. So always go to your student locator. Okay. That was a freebie. Won't charge you for it. So we're going to go back to no shows. So when you have a no show and that student shows up at another school in your district, this is just telling you the steps to go through. So you would use the student locator, pull them into your school, even though they are in your district, you would pull them in through the student locator, and then you will start the regular enrollment. Do not delete the no-show enrollment at the other school. And actually, I don't like a no-show enrollment to ever be deleted unless it was never true. Okay, I'm okay. So I had the case where a student was marked as a no-show on a Wednesday, and the teacher said, that was my bad. Susie was there. I saw her. I know she was there. And so if that was the case and it was never true, then you can go in, overwrite it, but don't ever delete an enrollment. Yes. So I hear the words coming out of your mouth, but I didn't process. So I'm going to hand you the microphone so I can listen properly and stop forming responses in my brain. Okay, I'm listening.
So I've had a couple of, actually 2 or 3 kids now who I received a records request for. I sent the records request on, went ahead and marked them as a no-show, put where they were going to, all was well and good. No, where I received a records request for. So I sent the records, and then I went in and I put in my W-22 and where they were going and the no-show and all. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Kid shows up for open house. I communicate with the parent. No, I never, in one case, they had never meant to send them to the other district. So I've since communicated with that district who says, that was my mistake. It was from years previous for whatever reason that they got that OLR. How do I fix that now?
I understand. Yay. Okay, I got you. So in that case, I would totally be okay with you overwriting your no-show enrollment, but make sure that you do re-request those records if it's an Infinite Campus. If you ever go to any like state conferences or anything and you're and learning about records transfer, you will hear the phrase, don't be the break in the chain. And so we ask you, don't be the break in the chain of records. So go ahead and just re-request those records back. It doesn't change anything on your side, but it just shows you released them, you requested them back, and that's correct. As long as they are there the first day of school. Okay. So Yes, yes. And I'm sorry you have to do that, but it happens. And okay, so another bunny trail freebie, and then we'll get back to no shows. This is why attendance clerks, I don't like you enrolling a student or registrars. If I have registrars here, I don't like you enrolling a student at 3 o'clock on a Friday. Especially if they're not there. If they're not there in a seat and you're like, oh, I'm going to be proactive. I'm going to go ahead and enroll the student. I'm going to have their schedule in there and they're going to be ready to rock and roll on Monday. I have seen it way too many times. What happens is they had planned to move, but then they got in a fight with so-and-so and then they decided to stay where they are. And guess what? You've requested records from their school and they show up at their original school on Monday and they're like, why did I get a records request? You're here. So just always don't request records. Don't start an enrollment until the student is there with a bottom in the seat. That is the recommendation. Okay. Huh? Oh, she said, what? Oh no. Talk to me. Let's talk through it.
Like I have kids right now that I've enrolled for this school year from other districts.
That's okay. That's okay. Because then they're going to be a true no-show for you. And that's okay. I'm talking about we're in the school year and it's like October 31st. And then I'm not talking the first of school. I'm talking about later. I don't think it's a good practice. Now you can go ahead and I think it's a bad practice because you shouldn't get funding for a student who's that does not have a butt in a seat. I don't think that's right. So, if you have them starting on that day, I'm talking about a Friday afternoon. You go ahead and enroll the student as of that Friday, and then you requested the records, but they show up on that Monday. You're doing it right. You're good. You just got excited. You scared me.
They've never ever been in a Kentucky school because they're out of state. And you put an enrollment to start the school year off, okay? And they call you back and say, we're not coming. We're going back to Alabama. Do you delete that enrollment?
Heck no.
They never stepped in your building.
That's right. So you know what they are? A no-show. I know. You can mark a no-show in the middle of the year. Yeah. But that's why I said don't add the enrollment in the middle of the year until you have a butt in a seat. So then you don't have to do no-shows in the middle of the year because you were expecting them and you've already created an SSID. So yes. So she asked if I have a student that has enrolled in for a Kentucky public school that's coming from out of state. So let's say I live on the Tennessee line. Over in Western Kentucky, I live in the Tennessee line. And so we had a lot of those. We had a lot of students who would come from Portland, Tennessee to move to Franklin, Kentucky, and they wouldn't show up. They changed their mind. They wanted to stay a whatever they are, a cougar. I don't know what they are. But so I meant like that's their mascot. Their mascot, okay? So they wanted to stay a Portland, Tennessee purple cougar thingamabobber. Okay, I gotcha. I'm feeling some QVC stuff going on here. Okay, so I learned about that during lunch. If you don't know about that, you can Google. All right, so if you have a student who moves from out of state into and they're coming to your school, they've registered, you're excited, you want to go ahead and give them a future enrollment for the new school year because you're expecting them there. They were there for open house, they were there for registration, but they don't show up on the first day of school. You have given them an SSID. You need to go ahead and no-show them. Okay, so that way we have record. It does not delete the SSID. No. Once an SSID has been created, it has been created. I'm right, Marissa, right? Thank you. All right, that makes me feel better. She's our IC guru, so she knows all things IC.
Change the start date one more day if they don't show up that day, right? Start date, you can change the start date for this newly enrolled student if for whatever reason they didn't show up on that Monday. If it's Tuesday and you correspond with them, you can change it.
Well, Chris, you could, but I don't like that. I don't like that because I think Infinite Campus needs to have what exactly happened with the student. So what I think should happen is in your case that you just gave me is they were a no-show on the first day of school and they show up day 2. And this is what I was getting to next. So thank you for the segue. So if you have a student who was a no-show on the first day of school, which is the only time technically you have a no-show, we talked about in the middle of the year, but if you have that, just give us a call. We'll walk you through it. But then what you do, I don't really like you going in and changing the start date. I like you keeping the no-show because I think that's the guidance that we have and we should follow it. Then you go in and give them a new enrollment for the day that they attended school, whether that was day 2, whether that was day 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 30 days later. Question? What do you think? You're halfway snarling at me and I.
Like the guidance counselors, like, the kid's not really a butt in the seat you referred to because they're in the counselor's office awaiting records, scheduling, looking at transcripts, and a lot of times guidance counselors will send them back home even when they come in the first day.
Ew.
I know. I don't like that.
I don't like that either. Safest place for a student is at school.
Parents don't like that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need to talk to your counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yes. Do you want the microphone? Sure. If you do that, it does create an issue on your SAR. So if you go in and change their start date, is what you're saying, Laura, is yes? But I am telling it correctly, aren't I? Okay. Okay. And you're just going to be okay with that. Okay. Chris, we're in this together, okay? We're going to get through it. All right. So just know, but that is the guidance that we have set forth, is if a student does not show up on day 1, they are a no-show. If they show up on day 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth, then you give them a new enrollment. Does that happen, Laura, with any student that happens with? If it's back to back, if you no-show them on the 12th and they show up on the 13th, which actually a lot of times happens. I would say you would see that often. Okay, so she says our SAR system is kind of stupid sometimes. And she says it's not smart enough to know that's correct. So DPPs, you might have an error show up on your SAR report. So attendance clerks, I'll get to you, young lady. So attendance clerks, that means SAR is Superintendent's Annual Attendance Report. Superintendent's Annual Attendance Report is what SAR stands for. Everything you do the entire year with attendance ends up going into this report. Your DPP submits that, and that's how your district is going to get its funding. And Miss Laura back there, she's in charge of that system. So when she speaks, I listen. All right, so let me see what my friend Penny has to say.
Now, on that first day, if you have an EHO, I've put in EHOs for those first days.
Okay, that is a great question. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since you did, Miss Penny, we can talk about it. So we used to say no EHOs on the first day of school. We found out through our policy advisor that you actually can, that there's nothing written into legislature that you can't not have an EHO on the first day of school. So yes, you can, and that would not be a no-show. Okay. That would not be a no-show. You're about. Pardon? Oh, well, State Fair has its own code. So State Fair, if they're using their one day on the first day of school for State Fair, mark it State Fair. Yeah, absolutely. We're okay with that. And then second day will just be normal. Like you don't have to do anything to their enrollment. Their attendance says State Fair. And so that would be okay. So they technically wouldn't be a no-show. EHOs, technically you're not a no-show because you're being counted as if you were present in school. If you've got a State Fair letter, whatever, documentation from the parent that says this is where we are going, the state does allow you to have one State Fair absence a year. And so in that case, you definitely can use it. 4-H, yeah, man, that kind of hurts my feelings with 4. Is that connected with State Fair? Okay, so with 4-H, remember you have to have a 4-H letter to. Okay, yes. So she asked, can you use 4-H? So yes, you can use state exempt codes on the first day of school. It's not our favorite thing, but there's nothing out there that says you can't do that. Home hospital is another one. Absolutely. Yes. And so, yeah, exactly. So a lot of these, I know the DPPs will be looking very closely because if little Johnny is on home hospital and they expect him to be, or we have a special ed student whose least restrictive environment is home hospital, and that was approved at the end of last school year, and it's crossing over into the new school year, then yes, but I'm really hoping that your attendance staff has already been made aware of the home hospital students and that attendance is in there. So then they don't go in and mark that student absent, because if the home hospital is already entered, it grays it out and you can't mark the student absent. Mark, were you going to say something? You're good? All right. Okay. Any other questions about no-shows? Thank you. All right. Are we good? Can we keep trucking, or do you all need to have another stretch break? We good to keep trucking? Okay, we'll keep trucking for a little bit, and then if I see you getting antsy, we'll take a short break. All right. So student shows up on the next day of school. What do you enter? A new enrollment. Now, this is what I think is pretty important. Did they start school at a neighboring district that already started school before you did? If you have knowledge of that, then you're not going to have them as an EO1. An EO1 start status, and remember my new attendance clerk friend, you'll find out about those start statuses in the PAM, the Pupil Attendance Manual. So an EO1 is for the student's first Kentucky enrollment of the year. So if they enrolled in a neighboring district that started school 2 weeks before you did, then they are not going to be an EO1 when they come to your district, okay? Because it's still possible you might have them as a no-show on the first day of school, but then they come back to you. So then it's just a little different. Any questions? Did I just muddy that? Any questions on that? All right, there is a no-show report. This is a report that most likely your DPP will run, and he's going to look at this closely because he or she is looking at the W-24s. because pretty soon they're going to start making home visits and calls, and they're going to start looking for these students and find these students. That's why it's important, if you get that records request, that you go in and edit that in status on that no-show. All right. Student attendance reports. So on the attendance profile of a student, you will see something called the attendance profile, and it's got a little printer beside it. And this is a beautiful report. It shows you this. Remember we talked about whole day, half day? Here, in this student's example, they were only here for 27% of the school day. I think that's wrong actually, but it's okay. This is like a what is it? It is, they have to be there at least 16% of the day for whole day, half day. I need help. Somebody help me. I think I'm right. All right. So this came out of a scrambled site. So my apologies for that being incorrect. So that should actually say 50 for the whole day, half day there. But anyway, this will show you whether the student's absence for the day is a whole day, half day, or 0, if they get credit. And it's in that, there's a little, I don't know if anybody can see what I'm talking about. I know that font is kind of small, but right here, it's going to give you whether it was a whole day or half day, or if they missed the whole day. But this is helpful if a parent comes in and they want a printout of their student's attendance. This is the report that you're going to print and give them. Also, I find that DPPs also use this for court purposes as well. All right, if you have a student that transfers in from another district, just know that you can see what their previous district attendance was. If there was a need to look at that, you can see how they attended school in their previous district. All right, so this is a fun little freebie that we're going to give you today. So you have, most of the time, we don't have what's called back-end access. And guess what? I don't want it. I want Marissa to have it because she is the Infinite Campus queen back there. But Ruthie doesn't want it. But there is a way to see what the back-end attendance table looks like. And so if you have a computer here with you today and you're able to maybe go, I don't know if you've got access to last year's students, but if you were to look at a student's attendance page and you move your cursor anywhere in the gray area of that page, and on your keyboard, you click Control Spacebar, you have this little pop-up that comes up, and it's going to look like this. And this is giving you a little glimpse into how the system is calculating the attendance. You're like, well, Ruthie, why would I need to know that? Well, I don't know. There might be a reason why. Maybe there is a reason like in the schedule's not showing up doing something correctly, or the student is not showing on the ADM ADA report correctly. And if that's the case, then you will see over here the funding. If there is a 0 on that funding, that second to last column there, you will see that that's the day that they're not getting funded for. All right, I need to speed it up because we really need to get into the clutch of this. There's another report, Kentucky Day Count report. So we're going to, this is talking about attendance groups. We're actually going to talk about these whenever we go into the balancing monthly report. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through these. My apologies for getting behind. There is a section on your handouts, and if you're listening to this recording at a later time, these, the PowerPoint presentation and the balancing monthly reports is on our website, and it should be located underneath this recording. So we push out state ad hoc reports. And if you go into your ad hoc reporting and you do not see a folder called State Published, call your Infinite Campus person at your district and ask for that, because that is something you can totally have. And I don't know of a reason why they would decline it. But again, they are the keeper of the rights for your district. But if you don't have access to that, ask them for that. All right, so we're going to go through all of these in our next report. We're going to talk about all of those. So we're going to get into our balancing monthly reports. So let's go ahead and switch gears and pull that up. I think we can do this in 45 minutes. We've got this. That means no break, though. Sorry. All right. So on that report that you have, we are going to start on page 4 of that printout. And it should start out with understand how the ADM, ADA, and register reports work. Oh, you cannot see my screen. Hang on just a second, guys. All right. Hopefully everybody can see that now. Oh, I thought I knew what I was doing. Okay, it's fine. All right, so we are going to start on page 4. There it is. All right, so we are going to talk about our ADM, ADA, and register report. I mentioned those earlier. The register report is a direct reflection of what the teacher and the attendance clerk enters into Infinite Campus. The ADM, ADA report is an average daily membership, average daily attendance report. This report can be run via truancy, and it can be run via funding. I recommend, and our office recommends, that you run this via funding, because that is where you are going to see if you have a gap or an error in your funding. So in order to show up on the register report or the ADM report, the student has to be enrolled. They have to have a complete schedule. They have to be enrolled in a valid grade, or elementary students, they have to have a valid homeroom. Now, we talked about the foundation. We had mentioned that earlier, all of the things that I'm not going to read these to you because you can read and then you have the printout in front of you. But these are the foundation that is behind your funding and your attendance. All right. Okay, we talked about the register report. So every 20 school, again, that's not at the end of the month. That's not 20 instructional days. It is 20 school days. So that includes your opening day. That includes PD. That includes instruction. So it's every 20 school days you will be required to do this as an attendance clerk. Now, if your district does that for you, bless your hearts, because you are so lucky. Some of the smaller districts, sometimes central office does the month-end reports. Personally, don't throw tomatoes at me for those districts who do that. Personally, I think it's great that the attendance clerk does that, because you are the one entering in the attendance and you know what's going on in your school building. But so someone, whether it's the attendance clerk or central office staff, someone is balancing and printing these reports on a monthly basis every 20 school days. Month 1 through 9 will have 20 and must have 20 school days. Month 10 will have less than 20 school days. All right. Balancing our monthly reports. So this guidance document that I have created for you gives you a list of every report that you should run at your district to make sure your data is clean. Make sure you have done your due diligence to make sure your attendance numbers are going to be 100% correct, not attendance 100%. Every DPP wishes that. But it's going to be accurate. And whenever you run your ADM, ADA, and you compare it to your register, 99% of the time, if you've done your preliminary reports and you've cleaned everything up, then it should balance. Will there be a time when it doesn't? Yes. But don't freak out, because I can show you a quick way how to figure that out, how to find it when we get there. All right, so schedule gap. There are 2 schedule gap reports out there. We recommend that you just go ahead and run both of them. I do have a favorite, but I just go ahead and say that you should just run both schedule gap reports. One gives you the option to exclude partial day students, to select primary enrollments only and run it. And I think that's a great report to run and make sure that because it's actually comparing courses to make sure the courses are marked as attendance and so forth. It's a good report. The other schedule gap report is making sure that there's just a full schedule. It's not necessarily looking for that attendance checkbox on the course. So if you have a high school that has a lot of performance-based students and a lot of courses that are not marked for attendance, that other report that I told you is my favorite, that might be a little cumbersome to run all the time, just because you're going to have all your virtual performance-based students on there. All right. So I have both of those reports listed. The next report there is for my high schools out there. There's a report called the Funding Gap Audit Report. Most likely, if you are a high school, your central office staff is also running this because they want to make sure this is correct. But this is looking at your virtual performance-based students and your in-seat students. And so this report, it shows 2 columns. It'll give an in-seat percentage and it gives a virtual performance-based percentage. With those, you have to add them up, and if they equal at least 93%, that student is going to be getting full funding. And those notes should be there on the funding gap. Oops. Yeah. I believe it does. I believe there is times like you will notice, I mean, it's looking at the entire year. When you run the funding gap report, it looks at the entire year. So if you have a different schedule from first semester to second semester, am I answering your question?
Okay, so first semester, so like for example, 2 of my high schools are on a block schedule. So first semester ends and, it's, if they don't pass, then we're not getting the full funding. So then second semester, is it going to pick up first semester and it's going to show less than 93% because obviously we lost some funding because they didn't pass the course, or is it just going to focus on second semester?
No. So what the funding gap report is looking to make sure you are scheduled enough to receive the full amount of funding. It's not looking at that passing grade, unfortunately, or fortunately. It's looking, do you have a schedule that meets that 93% in order for the student to make sure we get that full funding for that student? You're welcome. Got another question? Oh, she doesn't like the microphone. It's okay. I'll talk for you. Okay. Okay. Well, it okay. So the question was that she's got an entire grade that is showing up on her funding gap report as not enough time to fully scheduled. So in this instance, I am hopeful that your counselor is telling you correctly that she is working on those schedules. So what I would do is a couple days into school, when you've got a moment to breathe, print it again and look at it. And then if it's still, then you need to show her that report and show that they're not meeting that at least 93%. If that's the case, then, and if she needs help, it has to do with scheduling and whether that course is marked as attendance. It does. Yes. Attendance refresh. I think we mentioned that in here. Yes. Okay. There has to be something with the scheduling piece that she still hasn't finished. Yes. You always blame the guidance counselor. Of course it's their fault. Okay. She owned it. Yes. Sure. Shouldn't. She's asking if lunch could affect that, and it really shouldn't. Lunch is non-instructional time, and this is just looking at the instructional time. So I would recommend, if that is still not at the percentage where it needs to be, then you bring it up to the counselor, you bring it up to your DPP or your Infinite Campus person. And then if they, oh, you are it, lucky you. So then if you still have trouble, then you're going to reach out to your field staff. So whether that, are you Eastern Central Kentucky? Who are you? Where are you? Where do you live? Where? Grant County. Who has Grant? Becky is the lucky. So you are going to email Becky Walsh, and her email is on that document multiple times. And then what she will do is, if she can't figure it out, she'll reach out to the team, and we will definitely help get you fixed. You're welcome. All right. So we're looking at our funding gap report, state overlap report. It is very helpful to DPPs, attendance clerks, if you go ahead and you're running your state overlap report on a monthly basis, because when it comes to the end of the year and they're trying to get their SAR submitted, SAR, Superintendent's Annual Attendance Report. So when they are getting that submitted, if you've already got those overlaps cleaned up, it just makes their job so much easier. And plus, it's really better to call another district and say, hey, we have an overlap with you of 30 days than if you wait till the month of May and call about an overlap that happened in August. They may be glazed over and don't care. So, all right. This is harder than I thought. Oh, my bad, guys. All right, state published ad hocs. We were talking about that. So this is where you do need access to state published ad hocs as an attendance clerk. These are going to be reports that you will run at the end of each month, at the end of each 20 school days. So you're looking for end-dated T codes. So there's one out there called missing T codes. There's one out there called audit end-dated T codes. The difference is they're both missing, but one student still has an active enrollment, but their T code has been end-dated. Excuse me. Let me get some water. We also looking for overlapping T codes. We don't like those. There is DPPs, cases people who are out here, we do have an ad hoc called audit non-attendance courses. So if you've had a turnover in counselors in your middle school and they've created a bunch of new courses, this might be a good ad hoc to run to make sure they have properly marked all of the courses for attendance that should be marked. You will look at your partial day. You will look at your partial week. I'm not going to go into full partial day, partial week because Sasha did such a good job earlier about going into those. But does anyone have any questions about state ad hocs before I move on? All right. So my new attendance clerk, and it should tell you on there, it says go to search, data export. That's when you're going to go and you're going to find that state published and you're going to click on it and you can click the word test or export. You can export it as a PDF or an Excel document and that will pull that up for you. And that is how you're going to see what students are on there and what students need to be cleaned up. All right. So we will look at, you make sure your partial day and partial week attendance is good. We also look at your safe schools extract. Now, don't be scared of this report because as an attendance clerk, the only thing that you have to do is push the extract button. It's just one button out there. You get to push it. And whenever it comes up, it shows you a list. It's in 2 different sections. So behavior without corresponding attendance, attendance without corresponding behavior. So it's in 2 different sections, and this helps make sure that you have a good process between maybe your assistant principal who's maybe entering in the behavior at your school and you as an attendance clerk that you are entering in the proper suspensions, things like that. Any questions? I know we're going kind of quickly over this, but I want to make sure that we're able to talk about everything. I did try to be detailed in this guide. If you've got questions, feel free to reach out to us. We will be more than happy to go through this with you. But the Safe Schools report, it's really helpful that you run this on a monthly basis. 1, you're going to make sure your attendance is proper and accurate. 2, it helps the DPP so much at the end of the year when he has to submit the state Safe Schools report if he doesn't have to go back and fix things that happened in August and September. And then if he does, what usually happens is that's changing attendance reports, and then we end up killing more trees because we're printing more reports, so on and so forth. Home hospital validation report. This is one of my favorite reports that our team, Josh Whitlow and a lady by the name of Jen Winburn put this together. It is a really good report that helps you look at, and I'm sure Sasha covered it her last session, but it really helps you look at home hospital and it helps you find if there are errors. Now, it's going to show you. You did not cover it. Okay. All good. Well, I will be happy to cover it for you. Absolutely. I mean, you only had like 150 slides to go through. I don't know why you didn't cover it, Sasha. All right. Now I'll be happy to talk about it. So the home hospital validation report has 2, you can run it 2 different ways. 1, you can run it to see who is on home hospital. And then the second one is an error report. So it will show you, do you have what's called a home hospital attendance group that doesn't match the home hospital attendance as an attendance clerk? I don't know. Some districts do it different ways. Sometimes the attendance clerk puts the home hospital attendance in. Sometimes the district puts the home hospital attendance in. Everybody does it a little different. But this helps you see if there is a disconnect between the dates. This also will highlight if you have a student who has extended over that 6-month mark, because there is a rule out there that you have to get a new home hospital form if it is over 6 months, unless it is a chronic medical condition. Unfortunately, we have students who are diagnosed with pediatric cancer. Terrible, terrible thing. Could not imagine. If that's the case, that is known as a chronic condition because it's not like breaking a leg. We expect the leg to heal pretty quickly and the student to be back into school 4 to 6 weeks later. So in this case, it's highlighting for you possible errors. So if you have a student with a chronic condition who you have a home hospital form that is for the entire school year, they are going to show up on the report as an error. But you know, as the attendance clerk, what's going on with your students. And if this is a student with a chronic condition, it's okay that they're showing up as an error. Make sense? Okay. So this report, I highly recommend that you do run this on a monthly basis. All right, now we're going to get into balancing. So balancing our monthly attendance reports. So you are going to run your register and your ADM, ADA report every month. I would recommend not printing this to screen, printing this in paper until you have finished all of those preliminary reports, because you're just wasting time and paper, in my opinion. You don't want to start balancing until you have made sure that you have good, clean data. So our detailed truancy report, we talked about that. It is the ADM ADA truancy report is a direct reflection of the register. So I will tell you, anytime you run your ADM ADA report via truancy, it's always going to match the register because it's a direct reflection of the register. That's why we recommend that you run it via funding. And I've got pictures. You should, at the end of your handout that you have, you will see that it will show you how where we compare those numbers. But I do recommend that you run it via funding. Are we going to come box your ears if you run it truancy? Becky is saying yes. Ruthie is saying I won't box your ears, but I will tell you that I think it's best to, because you're missing possible funding. Okay, I'm doing okay. Quick story time. Had a district that had a kindergartner who was an out-of-state student. Does Kentucky pay you for out-of-state students? No, we do not. Oh, come on, Mark. I'm not getting... That is the weeds, my sir. Yeah, I know you did. No, he is correct, but we won't talk about that for now. So Kentucky will not, 99.9% of the time, will not pay you for an out-of-state student, okay? So this student was an out-of-state student. They were marked as out-of-state when they were in kindergarten. Student left. Student moved back to Kentucky, came into a district. This is a true story. It happened a couple of years ago. I helped a district find it because they could not get their reports to balance. Guess what? They were running their reports via truancy, and then they started running it by funding, and then they were like, whoa, we have a gap in funding. We can't figure it out. So anyway, the student comes back in 5th grade because they live in Kentucky now. So the district, they used their student locator. They did what they were supposed to do. They found that the student did not go to any other Kentucky public school. Since the last time they were there, they enrolled them in 5th grade. Guess what was still marked on that enrollment tab? The out of state. Guess what we don't pay you for? out-of-state students. So this student on the ADM ADA funding report was showing as a 0 for funding aggregate attendance. It was showing 0 days. And so running that via funding instead of truancy, it will help you catch these small things. Now, is that going to happen very often? No. But can it happen? Yes. Underage is the same thing. If you've got an underage student that you all failed to mark the underage waiver, it will also show as 0% funding. Okay. All right. So the other thing that we look at, the register and the ADM ADA report have to be signed by your principal or your principal's designee. Okay. It does need to be signed. We like it to be signed and dated. And does every single page have to be signed? No. My predecessor would have said yes, but we're not sticklers. The law just says it has to be signed. So we just need to make sure we have a signature. Again, we like dates on there too. I think that's healthy. And moving on. So this is how this shows you here. This shows you here the detail. I prefer you run it as detail. I think that is helpful. Some districts just do it by summary, but if you end up having reports that don't balance, if you've got the detail, you can look at the individual detail, and I'll tell you about that here in just a second. But this is where you're going to select your school month. Now, you will hear, I have a little note here. Since I've been in Infinite Campus, I was here since they created it. I am a dinosaur. And so when we started with the Infinite Campus, they always told us, make sure you select the state exclude button. That's always been told to us. But at the time, we were also marking our preschool students as state exclude. So this would help keep our preschool students off of our report if we didn't go in, if we just chose all students, if we did the state exclude, it would keep preschool students off that. Well, we can't mark the preschool students as state exclude anymore. They told us to stop doing that. So technically, you really shouldn't have any students that are marked as state exclude unless maybe I've seen school districts that have calendars where they enter in their homeschool students to keep up with them in Infinite Campus. But again, you're not running attendance reports for that calendar. So I don't necessarily do state exclude, because if I have someone inadvertently marked as state exclude, I want to know about it, because I want to know why they're marked, because most likely they shouldn't be marked as state exclude. So that's just my 2 cents. Take it, leave it, do what you want. So that is how you run the ADM ADA report. This is the attendance register report. It's a little bit easier to run. You're just going to go in and mark your school month. And you can do display option. It doesn't matter. You can do minutes or percent. I like to do the percent again because we pay you on a whole day, half day. And sometimes it's cool to see what that percentage was of that check-in or check-out. And then you're going to hit generate report. Both of these reports should be run by grade. Elementary schools, I know sometimes you all like to run things by homeroom teacher, but for balancing purposes, it needs to be run by grade in order to balance. Now, what if you want to run it by homeroom teacher and have them sign it? Is that okay with us? Sure, absolutely. As long as you kept your register that's also run by grade, so we can see that you balanced your reports. Okay. So here we go here. This is an example of a register report and an ADM ADA report. I did shapes. We used to do colors, but not everybody has a colored printer. So basically match your squares to your squares. Now that's called average daily membership, ADM. Are we paid on ADM? No, we are not. But do we need to make sure that our register and our ADM are matching or close to matching? Yes. What might be a reason why the student might show on the ADM ADA report, but not on the register? Does anybody know? A virtual performance-based student? Absolutely. Any other? Most of the time, your partial week, partial day should have an in-seat teacher at some point. So they should be on the register. So they should be included. I'm thinking of students who come in for special ed services only. Maybe those students who come in for speech only, then, or they go to a private school and they come in for special ed purposes. So those students are going to be counted here in your daily membership on the ADM ADA report. But because they don't have a teacher, they're not going to show on the register report. So is it okay that those don't match? Yes, if you can explain why they don't match. Yes, sir.
So, we have parochial kids that are enrolled in our district, but we state exclude those kids. Is that acceptable?
What are you doing with those kids? Why are you putting them in your district and state excluding them? Okay, no, you do not want to state exclude those students. The reason is because you want those students to show up on special ed reports. And so, well, that's a gray area where I am not special ed, but I've always been told, and if you have a student, the parochial students are fine to come in, but their enrollment is going to be different. It's not going to be a primary enrollment. It's going to be what's called an N enrollment, and it will say special ed services only. You're okay. One child count. And that's fine. I'm not going, as long as your special ed people are good with that. So what that is doing is that's keeping them off of this ADM report here. And so again, I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to box your ears for that. But a lot of people don't. Most people just give them an N enrollment and then know that we have 5 kids at this one school that are special ed services only. So there's going to be a difference of 5 students always between the register and the ADM ADA report. So I'm good half one way, half dozen the other. The circle, average daily attendance. Are we paid on average daily attendance? Yes, we are. Do we want that to match? Yes, we do. And if it doesn't, then we have an issue. Okay. So if your funding ADA does not match your ADA on your register, we need to look at it a little closer and figure out why. And how you can do that is over here on the register, you will have a list of students that their names here, and it's in grade alphabetical order. And see this little P column? That means present. That is accumulating your present attendance days. You are going to compare like if you're like, let's say it's third grade, you're not balancing and you can't figure out why you're not balancing. Third grade, then you're going to look at your register and compare that to your ADM, ADA detail, and you're going to look at third grade, and you're going to go line by line for each student until you find that little 0. Or you can do what I do as a shortcut. I'm glancing at the ADM, ADA report to see, do I have anybody reporting as 0% funding or 0 aggregate attendance days? Any questions about that? veteran attendance clerks that are here. Have you all ever done that before to find? You have? Okay, good. So I'm not making things up. That's good. All right. And then we have our triangle. Our triangle is just another way to look at the average daily attendance. The triangle here is the aggregate days of attendance. It's the true number of days that you will get paid for the students that are in your district. Now, this is kind of fun. If you're a statistics type person, Sasha's back there looking at me like, gross. I do English, not math. But if you are into math and statistics and you're curious to see roughly, not adjusted, roughly, and Laura can either give me a thumbs up or not, but roughly we're getting about $27 a day for a student for a calendar of about 170 days. So that's not adjusted. That's just a quick math. $4,600 divided by 170 is close to $27, okay? So if you're curious about how much money you're helping your district, with balancing these reports, you can take these numbers on your ADM ADA report and times that daily rate of $27. If you want to see what your absences are costing your district, you can times those number of absences times 27. And it's remarkable if you're looking at month 1 versus month 9, the difference. And so that's why our DPPs we're always talking about chronic absenteeism, and we're talking about coming to school. It's not just because we want kids to come to school. It is for learning, but we also want to be funded for it, because that's how our teachers and our schools get money to operate. Does that make sense? All right. All right. So this is once these reports here are balanced, once the reports match, then you're good to print your final copy. Print your final copy, have your principal or principal designee sign off on those, and most likely what you do with those reports is you send them to your central office. And this is just an example down here. This is just an example if you wanted to use. It's a checklist of all of those other reports that I had listed as preliminary reports. It's listed them on a checklist here, and this will help you. I encouraged my district, my attendance clerks that I used to work with, to use this because you get interrupted so many times. And so I really encourage my districts to use this, because you can put a little check there, and then, it's lunchtime, you go to lunch, you can come back. Oh, where did I leave off? Okay, I'm on the schedule gap report. This is where I need to start. So I find it helpful. I hope you guys do too. Feel free to use it if you want to, or your district may have another process for you. But that concludes pretty much the balancing balancing the attendance reports. So let me throw this up here really fast. These are our regions: blue, me; orange, Becky; green, Sasha. If you ever have any questions for us, this is our contact information. And so again, it's in your printouts that you have with you. And we would like to know if you don't mind taking 30 seconds before you leave, just to write on that. Did you learn something new today? You don't have to put your name on it. Again, don't put if you don't like me. I don't want to read that. But if you think I could have done something different, please tell me, because I want to improve for sure. Tell me that my corny jokes were bad. That's okay. Did you learn anything from today's training? And did I not cover something you wished I had? I'm sorry that we rushed through the end, my storytelling got a little long. Miss Becky back there in the blue, she has ELA certificates. So if you need an ELA certificate or if you need proof of being here today for your district, please go back and see her. She will hand you one of those certificates. Thank you guys so much. It has been great. You've been great. And if you have any questions, know that we are here to support you. And I appreciate it. Thank you.